So, hello everyone. Today we are going to learn about JavaScript. As you know, it is one of the most popular language today. Most of the popular frameworks like React.js, Next.js, Solid.js, and like lots of libraries are based on those UI libraries based on JavaScript. So JavaScript is a very important language in today's world if you want to learn web development and other things, right? So today we are going to learn JavaScript. So first of all, I have made a file named javascript.js. Inside this, I'm going to cover various types of variables that are, let me close this. Okay, let me zoom in actually. So there are lots of actually three main variables inside JavaScript. The oldest is var, right? After that there are let and const. We'll cover these in our this live stream. So yeah. So first is of course var. It is simply defined with var, like some variable. You can call it something like number or num, and it can be like 10, right? So this is actually very simple way of defining a variable, right? So now there is a method of printing your code in the terminal or in the browser console. So for that you will write console.log, right? So in console.log you will enter the variable name which you want to print. So here I'm printing console.log num variable. So for printing I am using, let me show you, I'm using an extension code runner. So this is the code runner extension that I'm using. It is used to run lots of languages, right? So you can also use it. So right, so I can run it. As you can see, 10 has come in the output, right? Now I can hide our sidebar or activity panel. Let me drag it a little bit to the bottom so that it doesn't cover our whole screen. And now, okay, we have covered the video. Actually, there are lots of things that can affect how you want to use these variables, right? Let me just remove it, right? So now var, so actually you might be rarely using var these days because it is not recommended. You should always be using let and const. Those were introduced in ECMS script 2015 if I'm not wrong, right? So after that let is used with simple let keyword, right? So okay, so this was the var, right? So let me remove it. Okay, these are the most important variables that you will be using inside your project. The problem is the var is it will make the variables global. So right, it like kind of make Windows variables, so it's not recommended. Let, so again let is used with let keyword, and of course you can also use it with like num and say something like 11. Let num is 11, and let me console.log num, and we have 11, right? So the main thing about let is you can change the variable declared or the value declared with this let variable. You can change it later. So for example, in the second line I can change num to 15. First I had used with let and I had given it a value 11, then I had used 15. So now as I will print, we have the 15, right? So after that we have the const. Const is declared obviously with the const variable, and of course you can use something like you can use like simple number or number 1, and the number 1 will be like something, let me use it a 19, right? Now if I console.log number 1, and we will see, let me remove this console log. You can see we have 19, right? So the thing is, you cannot change the variable declared, you cannot change the value of variable declared with a const keyword. So if I try to change it with this, like suppose I want to give it number 15, now I run it, we'll get an error that type error, assignment to a constant variable. So assignment to constant variable is not spotted, so that's when you want to use the let. So okay. So another thing about let is that, let me remove it, you can simply define some variables like a or b with a comma separated values. So you have declared two variables a and b that do not have any values assigned as of now. Then you can, in the second or in any further line, you can make it like a1 b is equals to 2, right? And you can even declare more variable in the same line, and later on you can put any value you want in those variables. So let me write console.log, and I can write console all the variables with a comma. That's another thing you can do with console log, display multiple values of multiple variables, right? So here also, let me remove this. Yeah, now we have 1 2 3 1 2 4 7. So these are values. Of course, in the const, let me use the same way. You can actually, let me remove this thing, and now in the const we can use the same thing like declare a, but it is expecting some value for a, right? So you can write in the same line a, then b, it is expecting another value for b, you can write 8, right? So we have declared the same in the same line the variables and their values. Of course we will console it, right? A, then b, right? Let me run it. We have 5 and 8, right? So these are the const and let. So another thing that we can cover is the scope, right? So first of all, let me cover the let, right? So let keyword is block scoped. That means if they are, like, suppose if true, if they are declared in some variable like let a is equals to something like 50, right? So this is declared in this block, in the curly block, right? This is a block in the curly braces. It is inside if statement. So if you, well, let me just quickly change something. There are user snippets for javascript.json. I want to change console.log. I want to remove this. Okay, so yeah, let me hide it. Okay, let me do it. Close this. Yeah, so this is, as you can see, is block scoped. So if I console log a, then if I try to console it, it will giving the value of 50. So that means its value can be accessed in the same block. So what if we try to access the value of a outside of this block? Let me use a, right? So let me print it. A is not defined, reference error, because a is not defined in this scope, right? Outside scope. So if you again write like let a is equals to like 40, right? And now you print it out, you can see we have here in this block it is a is 50, but outside block a is 40. So that's how we can say that it's block scope. In the same way, const is also block scope. Suppose you have a variable 20, and again in a block scope you have assigned a b as 40, right? And now I console it, the b, right? Now let me remove this code we have written for let me print it. We have the 40, but now again if I try to access it outside of block, let me print it. Let me, because this was printed because we have used p there, let me just for a second comment it out. Now again if you use this, it is again saying reference error, b is not defined, because b is only for block scope, right? So const variables are always block scoped. So even for if statements, for loops and some functions, they are block scoped, right? That's what you need to take care of. So you should use let when you expect the value of the variable to change over time, and use const when the value of the variable should remain constant and not be reassigned. It's good practice to use const by default and only switch to let if you know the variable's value will change during its life cycle. So most of the time you should be declaring the variable with the const, right? And nothing else. So these were the things about variables. Now let me go to this. Now next thing we can cover is actually data types. That's another very interesting topic in the JavaScript. So there are lots of data types. there are like, I think, first and foremost there are number, and then there are string, and then there are arrays, then there are objects, right? And also boolean, right? So these are some of the data types. In JavaScript, functions are also data types, right? So first is the number. So number is like some number, as we have used in the previous example. Number can be declared like something number, right? So this is simply a number, right? You can write anything. This is a simple number, this is a float, right? If I check here L type of, you can check the type of the variable, like what type of the variable is. You can use type of keyword in the console log, and then I write num. If I print it, I get the number. The type of num is number, right? So yeah, in the same way, next is string. String is declared with like single quotation marks or double quotation marks. That doesn't matter actually, right? So in this you can write something like the most popular hello world, right? And if we write here again type of str, you will be given a string. The type of str is string, so this is the hello world string. Hello everyone. So okay, now next is arrays. I will be using arrays, of course, with a const. So suppose we have array, it is always declared with the square brackets, closed square brackets, and inside array there are multiple things you can define. For example, one of the most common can be you can define a number. This is like something we can call it is an array of numbers, right? So I can call it array number, and if I check again its type of array number, you can see its object, like, right, it is object. So yeah, that's how JavaScript tell you that it is array. Actually there are some other ways to check if the data type is array, right? I will come back to that later. So also we can use array of string. That can be an array of strings like A, then B string, then you can write hello, another string, or world, right? So this is the array, right? If you print an array like array number, you will be given the same format in the console log also. If I write array string, you will be given the same in the same format you have used inside your code. So this is arrays. Now we have objects. So object says you can define object with like some with the curly braces. This is the object, right? It is always defined with curly brackets, I would say. So inside this you can write key value pairs. For example, you have an object like some information like ID. It can be of type number 1, and suppose you have an entry for a user, so his user's name can be Sam, right? So this is a ID and its number, so it's key and its value. Again, this name is key and its Sam is the value, right? Now if I again console our object, let me close it. So we have the object in the same way we have written in our code, right? If I now write type of object, it is object. Again, it's object, right? So now we have the boolean. Boolean is like simply true or false. Like suppose you have like something is true variable, and this is like true, right? Like you can write anything like is raining, right? So suppose true, yes, it is raining. Now if I console log the type of is raining, then we will get boolean. So the type of is raining is true. So suppose let me use it with the let, right? So is raining first is true. Now suppose after some time is raining is false. Raining has stopped, right? So now if you console is raining, now you have false, right? So yeah, that is the boolean value. It is always true or false, nothing else. Now the next is functions. Actually functions is also a data type, right? So before covering function, I will be covering function in another file, because functions are very important in JavaScript and in every language. One of the pillars, I can say, of any language, the functions. So I had covered, like, let me give an example. Now if I console, let me remove this array number, right? If I write type of array number, array string, sorry, and it is object, right? So again, this is object, if I try to check its type of, they both are object. So how we can tell that this is string or this is object? So one of the way is that you can use array, let me move it, array dot is array, then you will pass inside this method the actual array you want to test. Now I can console it and it is true. That means this particular thing is an array, right? If I write here this string, this is not an array, Let me refresh it, and now it is false because string is not an array. Array string is an array, right? So for object, there are also different methods. Now we know that to check the array we can use array.isArray and then pass array. For an object, checking object, you can simply use, of course, type of, and you can check the type of this object is equals to object. So now if I refresh it, it is true. Now let me try to put here the array string. So this is array, so this should be false. Actually, I think there are another thing we need to add, that is object or is not is equals to null, right? Let me check this. Okay, right. So I think we can simply write here simply check by it a type of array like object is equals to object, so that means it is object. So if you want to check for string, you can use array.isArray, right? And yeah, or alternatively you can write array.isArray, and now check this. So as you can see, we have now false because this array string is not an object, right? If I put here object, so we have the object. You can use this to actually particularly check if a particular variable is object or not, right? So we have covered number, string, arrays and objects. So next we have the functions, the very important, the functions, right? Of course, a function is written with the keyword function, right? You can give it any name like my function, and after that giving name you have to close it with circular brackets, and then after that you have to use curly brackets to close your function. So this is the simplest way you can define a function keyword with its name and square brackets and then curly brackets, right? So everything you write will be written inside these curly brackets. So this is actually scope of function, like we have covered the scopes in the if statement, right? So function has a return statement. Function actually always returns something. You want a function to return something, right? So here let me define a variable inside this. Let's array, right? Array of like numbers, right? So I want to inside this function return this array. So for that I will use return keyword, and after that you can return anything, right? So one thing to remember is you cannot use multiple return. So any code you will write, any code will not be accessible. It will be saying unreachable code detected. This code after return is always unreachable. So you should not write anything below return statement. So now let me put another variable, right? Like something like my array or my array. So now I want to get the value the function this is providing. I can simply write my function, right, its name, and I can call it, right? So I can get its value, my function, right? So now I can console my array. As you can see, my array is actually the my function. More specifically, the values returned by my function or this function, right? Now there are some other methods you can use the function, the power of functions, right? So suppose you want a function specifically to calculate the sum of two numbers, right? So suppose, let me just remove everything. Now suppose I want to make a function named sum, right? So I want this function to always calculate the sum of two numbers, right? So for that we can provide the arguments inside the function, like suppose number 1 and number 2, right? Number 1 or number 2, right? You can provide these numbers. Now inside this return statement you can write something like total number 1 plus number 2. So as this is a sum function, its sole purpose is to add these two numbers, the numbers it will got. So now I will return total. After that I can actually now directly get its value. Suppose no, first let me write my sum, right? In this I will call this sum function, right? I will call it, you will call it by writing the circular brackets. Now first I will define any number 5, or then I will write 10, right? So I want to add 5 with 10. So I have the sum value returned by this function, right? So this 5 will be number 1 and this 10 will be number 2. So this is 5 and this is 2. So this is 5 plus 10. I will console log it, my sum. As you can see, we have 15, 5 plus 10, 15. Now even you can console the values of number 1 and number 2 inside the function. Here I will write number 1 and number 2, right? Now let me write it. We have number 1 is 5 and number 10 is this, right? There is another property of console. Actually I cannot see inside this what is what, right? So actually you can inside console copy this first variable, right, and paste it, put it inside this, right, inside the string. Then again copy the second variable, paste it, put it inside the string, then separate them with the comma. Now if I print it, we have number 1 as 5, number 2 as 10, but this underscore is still not very good, right? So we can change this number 1 to simply like A, right? Then number 2 can be changed to simply B. Now our code is cleaner. If I print it, we have A5 and B10, right? So this is a power of functions. Now I can in the same way make a function to multiply two numbers, right? Function multiply two numbers. Again we can write A or B, right? And here of course I can write const multiply, right, A into B, right? Now I will return and return multiply. Okay, so I want to return the value this A into B into this, right? So now after my sum I can write something like my multiply and multiply, and I can write something like 4 into 10, right? It should be 40. Let me console it, my multiply. Let me zoom out a little bit, right? Now it's readable. Now we have 40, right? The value of multiply. Actually, we can make these codes even shorter and more efficient. You can directly do something inside return. So I can put this directly inside return A plus B. I think right? I can even remove this, return a plus b, and I can also write here return a into b. So we have these very short functions, like its sole purpose is doing addition and its sole purpose is doing multiplication. Now we can actually judge what is written inside our code. Now again, if I write my sum, we have the sum is 15, 5 plus 10, and multiplies 4 and 10, 40, 15 and 40. So yeah, so that's our function, right? So now there were another type of functions in a later version of JavaScript or EMCA script. They introduced arrow functions. Arrow functions are nothing but the functions, but their syntax is changed, right? So suppose you want to write a function. Suppose, yeah, this is a function, right? We define it with my function and we use curly brackets, right? So this is the simplest function. So what array function does is you can remove the function keyword from it, right? And instead of this you can use something like const, right? Const or let, and then between this my function name and the circle brackets you can write something like this equals to, and then after this before your curly brackets where you want to write your actual code for function, you can write an arrow. So that's why it is called an arrow function, right? Let me just write the function, normal function below it, so you can judge by yourself what is a function, right? As you can see, there are difference of the syntax. So this is a normal function, this is an arrow function. We have to define it with some const. With the const we will give first the name of the function, then this will be equal to this function, right? Actually inside this is a function. Hello Vijay Singh, how are you? So this is a normal function. So now inside this sum and multiply we can change it to arrow functions. Let me just remove its function keyword and we will write const, and after that name, then equals to sign, then we have circle brackets, then the arrow sign. So this is arrow function. Most of the time in your projects in today's worlds, in whatever company you are working, you will be using arrow functions most of the time, and also they are easier to read. We will be covering the array methods or some other JavaScript methods. You will learn more that how beneficial they are. We will remove function here also inside multiply, const, and after const we have the name of this function, and we will use equals to sign. We have these circle brackets. After this we will write arrow. So we have this arrow function, right? Now again we can console it, and I think we have, yeah, we can remove this. Now I will console it. Yeah, our functions are working. We have just converted them to arrow functions. Now after that, there are other concepts in JavaScript called operators. Let me close it. So JavaScript supports various operators for arithmetic, assignment, comparison, and logical operations, right? So like we have covered the something like well is equals to, or just we have just covered, you can simply write sum 5 plus 5, right? So this is a operator, this plus is operator, this is actually for arithmetic operator, right? You can do something else like divide, like 10 divided by 5, right? So these are the operators, right? So there are other things you can use. Let me just first console it, sum and divide. 10 and 2, this is 10, this is 10 divided by 5, 2, right? And now there are other like assignment operators or comparison operators, like, or logical operators. So here, suppose we want to check is equal, alright? So is equal, we want to check if our sum calculate is equals to 10. Is the sum calculated? We have just calculated is equals to 10. So for that, we will use this comparison operator. Let me write is equal. We have true, so sum is equals to 10. If we write something else value, we will get a false. So it's a false because sum is not equals to 6, sum is equals to 10, right? So we can use is equal, right? And then there are logical operations like logical AND. We can use something like true and false, right? So true and false will be of course false. True and true will be true, right? And false and true of course will be false, right? And now we can also use logical OR operator. It is used with true or false, right? So this should be true because this is OR. If OR has any single value as true, it will return true. Right? So this is logical OR operator. And if both are false, only then this is false. So we have logical OR as false, right? So for AND, this will be true only when both are true, right? So we have true and true is true. Anything if become false, it will be false, right? So false and false, or true and false will also be false. So let me write something like this. True and true. Let me remove this so we can understand it very clearly, right? First is true and true. It will be true, right? Now we will write true and false, right? This will be false, and now false and true. So in AND, if any single value is false, it will be false. It is false, and of course false and false will be false, right? So these are the AND operator you can use to do many things inside JavaScript, or something like in your React project to conditionally render your components. Now we have OR operator. Let me just replace everywhere with the OR operator, right? So now if any single value is true, its value will be true. So both value has to be false for the OR operator to give a value of false. Let me refresh it. Now as you can see, first is true, true and true, or true is true, true or false is also true, false or true is also true, false or false is false, right? So that is the OR operator. Now we will be covering the control flow statements, which includes if else, switch, for loops, while loops, and do while. Now we will cover Now we will cover control flow statements. Inside control flow, we can have many types of statements or loops. First is if else statement. You might have used somewhere in other programming language and is also available in the JavaScript. Then there is switch statement, right? Then after that there are loops. So for inside loops we have first for loop, then we have while loop, then we have do while loop. You really will be using do while loop. Most of the time loop is okay, right? So first is if else statement, right? So if it is usually written with if, right? And then we have block, then we have else statement written with else keyword, and again the block, right? So suppose if true, we have some value that is true, right? We can write something, it is true, right? Then if it is not true, then in this I can write it is not true, right? So as this is always true, this is why this is unreachable code. So to make that reachable, we will simply use a variable like number or 5. Now inside this if number let me write 0. If number is greater than 0, we will write that number is positive. So because it's greater than 0, it's positive. So else it is negative. So if it is greater than 0, it will come inside if statement. We will write number is positive. So if it is not greater than 0, it must be then less than 0. So that will be covered inside else statement. So here we will write number is negative, right? Let me write some positive number 5. This will be written as number is positive. So as you can see, number is positive. If I would write -5, it is less than 0. Let me again refresh it. Number is negative. We have a negative number. So that is the if else statement, right? Suppose in if else we want to cover some other cases, we can also use that. With writing between if and else, we can write if else can write else if, right? Inside else if we can console like something. We can write number is 0. Wait a minute. We have if, then we have else if, then we have else statement, right? Everything's correct, but why it is saying this? Okay, we need something inside this. If number is equals to 0, alright? So if number is greater than 0, it's number positive. else if number is 0, number is 0, right? So if this, else number is negative. So if we write this, number is positive. If we write 0 one number, the number is 0. Then if it's minus 8, we write it, number is negative. So our if else statement is working, right? Let me just comment it out. Now we will come to our switch statement. Switch statement is usually written with something like switch. It is written with the switch keyword, and after that there is expression or some value, right? So suppose in this case we have const type is equals to single. Let me write type is equal to single, right? So inside switch we will give the value of some expression switch type, right? After that we will write curly braces, then we will cover different cases, right, with the case keyword. So case keyword is that it will cover all the potential different values of this type. It can be of multiple or it can be something else, right? So for here we will be covering its two types. First, let's say type is single, right? The case, for that we will simply write case single, then colon. Then after that we can use something like console, type is single, right? Then after that we can use another case. This time its value can be multiple, right? So now we can write console log type is multiple, right? So now if before consoling it, there is a default value in the switch. Suppose case is not single, the type of this is not single or multiple. Then if it's else, then we will write type is something else. We don't know the type, so that's why we have used default. If it is not covered here, it will be covered here. Let me console it. First type is single, type is multiple, type is something else. But this is wrong. We want to cover only single value, right? So that's why after every case you will use a break statement to break the switch statement, right? So now as this type of single, I want to only write the type is single. Let me again refresh it. So now we have only single value, type is single, right? Now if I write type here multiple, so in this case switch statement will go through the type. Is the case single? No. So it will not run this, and now then it will go to another case. Is the case multiple? Case means is the value of type we have provided inside switch is multiple. Yes, it is multiple. Then it will console log this type is multiple. So now as you can check, let me write the break here. And now if you check in console, type is multiple, right? So suppose let me write something else. We don't know the type, right? Like something like other, type is other, right? Now if I console log it, we have type is something else. This case is not covered, this case not covered, right? So we have this default case covered because it's not single, not multiple. So default is type is something else, right? So this is the switch statement, right? Or we can write it switch case statement. Let me just put the comments on that. Now we have the for loop. For loop is defined with for keyword, right? Inside this, it is actually used to iterate over some value, right? So suppose we have the value as something like 10, right? So first, most of the time you will be using a variable called I inside for loop. Suppose first I is started with 0, right? Then I want to repeat it until I is equals to or less than 10, right? Then I want to increment the I, right? So after 4 we will be using the curly braces, right? So inside this I want to write I, simply I, right? So let me just first use this. We have I as 0, I as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So for loop has console logged our I up to 10, 0 to 10, right? So instead of this 10, we can simply use any variable, this val. Now I want to only use it up to 5, right? Let me console log again. Now we have values only up to 5, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So this is the for loop, right? So I can actually use, suppose I want to start I from 1. I do not want to start it from 0. I can write here 1, right? Now I can print it. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So this is how you can use the for loop. There are so many things you can use with for loop, right? Suppose another case of for loop can be a little bit complicated than the beginners, but still it's understandable. Suppose you have some numbers, right? Like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, right? These are the numbers. You want to add everything, right, inside this number. Now let me write a variable as sum. So initially sum will be 0, right? So now inside this I want to write so as this is an array, I want to repeat it equals to this array dot length, right? So array dot length will give me the length of this array. You can even check it. Let me console it. Array number dot length. You can see the length of array is 5. So this will be run 5 times, right? So array dot number will be 5. It will run 5 times. I will be less than 5, right? So now I want to add some. Let me just write the item, right? So I want to one by one fetch these values. First, in the first loop I want to fetch 10, then 20, then 30, then 40, then 50, and I want to keep then adding inside sum. So first item array num is equals to I. So first I is equals to 0. So that's why I want to start it from 0. Let me just show you. Array num 0, right, is equals to 10. Array num 1 is equals to, this is a 1, this is a 20, right? So this is a convention in which array's first index is 0 and then 1. Index starts from 0, right? So here item is array I, first is 0, it is 10, then 20. So sum is equals to sum plus item. We can simply write sum, first sum is 0, then add inside it the item, right? So as you can see, let me now console our sum. I think there is some problem. Sum is sum plus 1. Wait a minute. Let me console our item, right? Sum is equal to sum. First we have, right, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, right? Then it is repeated some other time. Actually it is less than. We should not be writing equals to, right? Now let me write it. Let me again run it. Now we have 150, right? Our for loop worked. So as you can see, addition of all these numbers is 150. So that's how you can use for loop with the arrays. Most of the time in production apps, you will be writing the arrays, you will be working something with the array, right, with the for loop, or there are other methods for array like for each that we will cover later. And now we have for loop covered, right? So now we will cover the while loop. Let me close it. Let me also comment this out. So we will not have console logs from previous examples. So as you might have guessed, while loop will run until a condition is met, right? So suppose we have the most simplest example of while is using the count, right? So suppose we have a count as 1. First the count is 1. So we will use while loop with the while keyword, right? So I want to run this while loop until the count is less than 50, right? So every time I want to console count, and I also want to increment the count. This is very important because you want to increment it after every while loop, right? Because if you do not do this, it will just run indefinitely, so your program will crash in that case. Now I will run it 1 2 3 4 5, actually 4, so that's why it's run until 4. So this is a console log, and we have used count plus plus. This is actually the while loop, right? So actually if I want to count up to 5, we will use less than equals to 5. So in that case it will run up to total value of 5. So we have counted up to 5. So that is one of the basic examples of while loop. So let me use the sum of this array using the while loop. First we have used it using the for loop. Now we will use it as while loop. Of course we'll use sum as 0, right? Now count is if less than array number dot length, right? So now in this case, because indexing start from 0, we want to start it from 0, right? So now of course I will be not using equals to, because then it will run up to 5. So array num 5 will be equals to, let me show you, will be undefined, right? As you can see, it is undefined. So now inside while loop, I want to access item equals to the count. The first count is 0, right? So instead of count, I can write here change all occurrences index. I want it to be index, so we can understand it properly. First index is 0, right? Let me console it index. I will console the index in this case, right? Let me just console it. Also I will console the item. I will console index, I will console item, right? Let me remove this console. After every loop, I will be also adding index by +1, right? So as you can see here, the first, I will show you. In the first loop, the index was 0, right? So the item is array 0. This is array num 0 is 10, right? In the second, then it has incremented it with index ++. So after that, the I or index becomes 1. In the second loop, it becomes 1. So now array num 1 equals to this, right? This is 0 index, this is 1, right? So on, and it will repeat up to 4. Array number 4 is 50. So now I want to write sum is equals to sum plus item. Let me remove this console. Let me write here our sum. As you can see, we have sum of 150, right? So we have calculated the sum using the while loop, right? Actually, you can improve this line of code by simply writing plus here and removing this whole expression. So this actually means if you write plus equals to or minus equals to, plus equals to means sum plus sum is equals to item, so it will still work. As you can see, it is still working. So this is how you can actually calculate the sum of numbers inside array. So right, this is our while loop, and I will now comment this out. After that we have while, do while. Actually, do while is mostly just like the while loop. It's just that you want to understand it better. Let me write count. We will use the same thing, count 1, and it is do while. First we will write do keyword, do something inside this block. Let me write, for example, we want to console count, and of course count plus plus. So as we were using count plus plus inside while loop, here we will be using this plus plus variable or expression inside do. Then do this while count is less than is equals to 5, right? While the count is less than equals to 5, do this thing, or I can say run these lines of code. If I console log it, we can say it has counted up to 5, right? So this is the example of do while. Of course, I can use the same example here for the do while. Let me uncomment this. We have index 0, array number, sum, and we can use the same code here inside the do. Right, item is this, array number index, sum is this, sum plus item, right, index plus plus, and index here instead of index count I will write index. I will not use equals to. Then after that we will write sum. It will be of course 150, right? We have 150, and I can even make this even smaller code by directly writing it here and not storing it in variable. Sometimes you want to write some very small or clean code, right? So again, this is also 150. So this is do while. So we have almost covered everything. If else statement, switch statement, right? We have used for loop, we have covered while loop, right? Do while loop, every loops inside control flow. Now after that we have like arrays is one of the most used data type inside JavaScript in every major or minor project. So we will be covering array methods. There are lots of array methods, but I will be covering only the one of the most used or most popular array methods. So of course array has push method, right? It has pop method. It has, for each method, it has map method that's used very much inside, I can say, in React projects. Then we have filter, right? Then we have find method. Then we have includes method. Then we have something like index of method, right? Then also we have, last but not the least, reduce method. So these are the array methods I'm going to cover. So for every array method, I will at the top declare a array, right? Array. So let me simply write some numbers, right? Or let me write some names, right? John, Jack, Sam, right? We can write something like Selena, right? Let me just use it here inside push. So first we have the push method, right? Push array method. So suppose inside array you want to push some number or some item, right? So inside this array, suppose you want to push something or appends new elements at the end of the array. So suppose I want to push at the end of array the mag, right? Let me first insert console log array, then console log array. There will be two array. First it is before pushing, after. Second console log is after pushing the element. As you can see, first it is a simple array. After that the mag is pushed at the end of this array. So that's when the push is used. It's very simple and you can use very simply, easily in your project. Push. After that I have a pop, right? Pop is actually when you want to remove the item, the last item from your array, right? That is when you want to use array.pop. Now if I console log array, as you can see, the last element in array Selena is removed. We have only 3, John, Jack and Sam, right? So that's when the pop is used. It is simply used to remove the last item from the array. Now we will cover the for each. For each is, suppose you want to do something for every string, right? Suppose I have a string like all names, right? So I want to add all names inside this string. So now I can run array.forEach, right, array, then we will write dot for each, right. So after that, now here I will use the arrow function, right. Actually I can use, first I will tell you, simply writing simple function, then first will be the item, then its index. Then I will show you by consoling the items. So for each I'm consoling one item, John, Jack, Sam and Selena, one by one, right. So I can do anything inside for each, whatever I want to do, right. First improve this code by converting this into array function. Now I can remove this and simply writing this. So this is a part of array functions. Our code is very cleaner and we can simply write here, right. Even more, I can remove this second item index from here and also remove this circular brackets, so I can simply write item equals to, right. So this is actually array function. As you can see, if I console log it, print it, we are getting the name one by one and our code is also cleaner. So now suppose all names is all names plus item, right. So let me remove this console, let me write it here, all names, let me print it. Actually it has print. Let me also add a space between them. As you can see, all names is a string that has all the names concatenated with the space, like John, Jack, Sam and Selena, right. So that's how you can use for each. I will be back in like 5 minutes. Stay tuned, guys. So I covered for each, right? It will with this we can get the items one by one of an array, right? And you can do anything you want inside the return of array function, right? So after that we have the map function. Now inside map actually map is used to map something on an array, right? So suppose let me write something. Map is to generate an array, like suppose I write new array is equals to array dot map, right? So it has, we will use a arrow function. So first there will be item, then index, or for index I can simply write I, then this is the arrow function, and in this I want to return. Actually the difference is map is also map the all items, for each also map for items, but we don't have to necessarily return anything from each item, right? We can do anything we want, right? But in this we have to return something for every item. So what we have 4 items, so this will be like what we want to map for each item. Suppose inside each item I want to add something like name, right? And then plus I'll write item. I will concatenate name with the item, like this will be name John, name Jack, name Sam. So now let me console the new array. Let me console it. As you can see, we have the new array mapped with the dot map function. So for every item we have mapped this, or I can say concatenated this string in every at the start of every string, right? So name is John, name is Jack, name is Sam, name is Selena, right? So this is the map method, also very beneficial, specifically inside the React projects. So you must be using very oftenly inside those production apps after you become expert. So now we have the filter. So we have this array and I want to filter it. So let me write const to understand. Let me make this array rather than array of strings, let me make it array of numbers, right? So this is array of numbers. So I want to actually filter is will also return an array with the filtered items, right? So I want the like greater than 5, something like that. So I want to only filter from array. For that I will use array dot filter. Of course here also I will use arrow function, right? Let me every time use this because it is a good convention to use item I in a circle brackets, so we have a proper arrow function written inside this, right? So filter have like callback function. As you might have guessed, every function have a callback function that will run for every item, right? So of course filter will run for every item, right? Let me console to check it. If it runs for every item, yes, it is running for every item. We have 1 to 9, right? So okay, so I want to filter it, right? In the return, in the filter also you have to use the return only the items which are greater than 5 as the name of our variable, right? Items only greater than 5 run, right? So filter always return an array, new array filtered from these items. Let me console it. This is greater than 5. Of course, now we have 6, 7, 8, 9 because only these numbers are greater than 5, right? So we have this 6, 7, 8, 9, right? In the same way, I can write something less than 5, right? Array dot filter, then item, or instead of item you can write anything like element I, then this is array, and in this arrow function I will return or element. In this case we are using element instead of item. You can use any name you want. Element is less than 5, right? So here I will console less than 5. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 because only 1, 2, 3, 4 are less than 5, right? Then we can also like change it greater than or greater equals to 5. Let me just choose it, just like hypothetical name. We will not be using this inside your production apps, something like that. Greater equals 5. It should be greater than or equals to 5, right? So now it is equals to or greater than 5. So that's 5, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this is how you can use a filter to filter the items from an array and return a filtered array. So these are actually the filtered arrays. Do not expect the filter to give you a single value. So let me also so now we have the find function or a find array method. This is our array, right? So for find we can simply use our previous array of names, right? This is our array of names, and now let me just name it find user. Let me give it a name, right? Find user. And now from array I want to find, right? I want to find inside this. Again we will use the I can say arrow function, right? So again it will contain the user every time, right? This is a user. Now here I want to return user is equals to John. I want suppose I want inside these names to find this name user, right? Let's console log it, find user. So it has given us the name user John. Suppose we find some user that's not inside our array. Suppose Lina, right? Let me undefined, or Mac. It's again undefined because it's not in our array. I will write Selena, right? It will provide us name Selena because it found it, right? We can actually improve our find method. We do not even need to use this curly braces and return. Inside arrow, we can actually simply write user is equals to Selena, right? So in this way we can use this inside the same line, right? So most of the time you will be using it like this. You will be using find and you will be providing what we can say the callback arrow function inside in the same line. So this is arrow function user, right? It will iterate for every user. It will keeps on finding the user until it find the one you have applied here, right? So this is how you can find any item inside your array. Now we have includes, right? Includes is also very simple, right? So so most of the time you will be using something like is included. It returns, I think, true or false, right? It returns true or false. Is included. So for that, array dot includes. I want to check if this array includes any name of the name like Sam. Let me now print it. Is included. It's true. That means this Sam is included in this array of names, right? I can also write Selena. It is true. Then I can write something like, of course, Mac. It's not included. So then in that case, it will return false. So if it is included, you can do something inside your code if you want to. So this is included, right? So this is very simple. The next is index of. Index of is, suppose I want to find the index of something, right? Find index of, let me write the name of our variable, array dot find index, or simply like index of. And here let me write user. I want to find the index of a user whose name is Sam, right? Or let me write the Jack. Let me console it. Find index of. Okay, I think how it works is we do not have to use callback function. We have to simply use name. Okay, right. Sam, let me try it. Yes, this is very straightforward. You have to simply provide in the index of method of the array simply the name that you want to access, right? So in this case, it's Sam. So the index of Sam is 2. So as you may know, the indexing for array starts from 0. John is 0, Jack is 1, then 2, then 3, and so on, right? So this is array index of Sam. Of course, then Selena will be 3, right? So suppose you have a name that's not included, then it will, I think, return -1, right? So that's how index of works. So these are multiple ways. That's how you can use array methods to work with your arrays, right? So last but not the least, we have reduce. For reduce, let me again use an array of few numbers. Hello everyone. Hello Vanditam. Hey, how are you? So inside array.reduce, it is mostly used to do something like some type of numbers or to reduce the array, right? So reducer actually contains, most of the time you want to use reducer to calculate the sum of the numbers inside an array. So suppose, let me name it numbers. So for numbers array, I will run a reduce, right? So first it will be accumulator, and after that this is a current, right? So we have accumulator and the current. So in the second argument, first argument contains the callback and second argument contains the initial number. So suppose first initially sum is 0, right? Let me just console log accumulator and the current. So we have accumulator as undefined and current as current, right? So in this case, let me write ACC. Let me again print it. We have current as 1, 2, 3, but accumulator as 1. I think accumulator is only available on the first call. So let me return accumulator plus current. Let me remove it. Now let me console log our sum. As you can see, it has calculated the sum like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So this is how it is done. So it is actually applies a function against an accumulator and an each element in the array from left to right to reduce it to a single value, right? So its basic purpose is to calculate something on every element of the array one by one and then reach a single value at the last. Okay, that's great, Vandita, that you want to learn Java. Actually, I'm covering JavaScript. If you want to learn Java, I will also cover that. So, okay. So there are other methods of the arrays that you can use. Like suppose there is a sort method, very beneficial method if you want to sort the items inside array, right? So suppose we have an array and there are some jumbled numbers. and inside this array I want to sort it, right? I can write some variable like sorted array, right? Then I can simply write array.sort, right? Now I will console it, sorted array. As you can see, this array is sorted 1 2 3 4 5 6, and this array is not sorted. So that's when you can use sort method to sort an array. So now, after we have covered so many methods of arrays like push, pop, for each, map, filter, find, includes, index of, reduce, and so on, and sort, there are methods for strings also. Strings methods, right? So there are lots of methods for strings. Like it can be concatenate method, or slice method. There is a substring method, and we have something like to uppercase and like something like to lowercase, right? And there are some things like trim. Some methods also include in string as well as for arrows. So this includes, like, it's also available for string also, right? So there is very beneficial split method, then join method, right? Then replace method, right? I will cover them very quickly one by one, right? So first is string, right? So we have string 1 as something like hello, right? Let string 2 is equals to world, right? This is hello world. So we want to concatenate or merge or combine these two strings, right? So we can do that like let combined, let me name it combined string. You can name it anything if you want, right? String 1 dot concatenate string 2, right? So let me console it. Combined string, we have hello world, but it doesn't contain any space, so you can write multiple strings inside this, right? Like this, right? Now if I print it, we have the space between hello world, right? This is a very basic example. Let me just comment that out. Again, we have two strings, right? Let me write s1 string 1 let me write something like two countries, India, right? Let me write America, right? So string 1 is India and America. I want to just slice it, right? So let me use something like portion. So I can slice string 1 with at the index where I want to slice it. So suppose this is 0, this is a start index where you want to start slicing, and then the end index where you want to stop slicing. So let me console log portion India. So we have India, right? So now let me extract America from here. So for that, this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think America is starting from index 6, and at the last we can use -1 because I want to reach at the end, right? America. Okay, I think I can let it empty. This will work. Yeah, you can make it. You can, or you may not provide the end index, and it will work, and it will reach up to the last index of the string. So this is slice. Substring, right? Let me again use this string, and now substring is let substring, right? It is let me write it simply a string, right? str dot substring and here also we have start index and end index, right? Suppose we have 0 start index and 5 end index. So here how we can extract substring, as we have extracted India from this string India and America, right? We have given start index and end index. So this is substring. After that we have uppercase. This is very simple. Suppose we have name as Jack, right? So I want to make it uppercase. So in the console log, let me write name dot to uppercase. We can't use name as a name, right? Let me write the user. Let me print it Jack. It has make every element, or I can say every character of this string as uppercase. So in the same way as we have used this, I can use lowercase. Suppose I have written something like it. Suppose the first letter is capital, then I can use it to lowercase, then console it. We have the lowercase characters for the string, right? For the user string. And this is how you can use it. After that we have the trim. Suppose you have like some spaced string. Suppose example, so you have space on the start and you have some name, right, and space at the end, right? So you want to trim the spaces from the start and the end, or I can say white spaces. These are also called white spaces. So let me write trimmed string. This will be spaced string dot trim, right? And let me console log trimmed string. If you console it, you can see we do not have any white spaces. If I console the spaced string, we have the spaces, right, at start and the end. That's when you can use trim to trim the white spaces from start to end. Includes is very simple. Suppose we have countries, India, and I want to know if this country's string has a country named India, right? So let me write find country. We have defined a variable named find country. Now here inside countries string, I want to just find if the countries includes India. Let me, one thing to take care of that, you cannot simply write like this India. This will treat it as a variable, right? It will find the variable. So here it will say error, India is not defined, because we do not have variable named India, but we have to put it inside the string. So now let me console it. It will give us true or false value. Find country, true, India is included in this string of countries, right? So for example, we put a country that's not included, right? For example, Japan, it is false because Japan is not included in this string. So yeah. Split is also very beneficial string method. Suppose I want to split this array, or I can say string, right? Splitted string. I have named the variable splitted string, and I want to split countries everywhere there is a comma, right? So it will give me, I think, array. Let me check. Splitted string. Countries. Oh, I forgot to write split method. Okay. So we have the array of strings where it has splitted everywhere where there is a comma inside this string countries. So this is India, this is America, and this is Canada, right? So join is used when you have a string actually. Suppose let me write countries. Now I will write an array. First India, America. So I want to join them, the two values inside string, into a single string. So for that, let me write joined countries dot join. I will use join method, and I want to join every name inside countries with the comma, right? So let me write console it joined. So we have the string India America joined with the comma, right? So this is how you will use join. So there is a replace method, right? suppose you have, let me console it. Suppose you have a string named something like Jack Mac, right? And you want to replace a string. We will use the replace method, and then we will use replace Jack, right? Jack with a John. Inside the string, I'm to replace this name Jack with the name John. So let me console the string again. I think it will return a new string. New string. Refresh it. So as you can see, in this new string, it has replaced Jack with the John. In the old string we have Jack, now we have John, right? So this is the replace method, right? So we have covered some methods of string also: concatenate, slice, substring, and then uppercase to lowercase, then trim, then includes, then split, then join, then replace, right? So we have used so many methods. Yeah. So this is how we have covered different aspects or concepts of JavaScript, like variables, operators, functions, data types, control flow, different types of if-else statement, switch statement, for loops, while loop, operators, array methods, then string methods, right? There's so many things that need to be covered in the JavaScript. So yeah, thank you everyone for watching. And liking the stream. So yeah, I think that's all for today, right? So we will meet tomorrow in a new stream. Yeah,